Yahweh, tēnā koe, a bit of a fruit salad opening to do with my homelands, and in beautiful Australia, so Yahweh, Gold Coast, heading to a beautiful part of Australia, the wet Sundays. So it's peaceful morning, it's 3 a.m. here, and I guess the title that I hold is Universal Elder, bringing awareness and education through humanity, bridging everything that we are needing to be in service to ourselves, to the planet, to the future that's not here yet, and really looking at moving into the area of using the technology and tools we have to best move together with the times. So that's me, and I represent and sit on a lot of the Indigenous United Nations councils, and it's a beautiful time to be alive in this transition of rebuilding, resetting, and reclaiming what we have to make things right for the next generation. So that's me. Did we get that?
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Great to have you here with us. Morning,
Yeah.
morning, evening, all the time zones. Yeah, great to have you here today. Brian and Joshua are here. Let's just take a moment for the time we're in. Should we take a minute to just be still together? Take some breaths together. Sherry, would you mind leading us into that? Would you be happy to? Thank you.
I would be happy to. And if we could mute everyone who's, I think, Elijah, if you could mute, that'd be great. Yeah, let's just take a nice deep breath in. And as we do that, let's softly close our eyes. Just allow yourself to deepen in presence with this moment and this circle of extraordinary people in service to this more beautiful world. And allow your breaths to deepen and slow down to be able to feel even more of what's happening. Allow yourself to soften your face, your eyes, your body, your shoulders, soften in order to receive. Let's just be in receptivity here for a minute. Notice your expanded listening, being able to hear more, and your expanded sense of self to be inclusive of this community here. With another nice deep inhale, open your eyes. Drink in the beauty that we're sitting in here with everyone.
Thank you so much, Sherry. I feel we all feel a solidarity with the collective right now, and yeah, really just appreciate this time together. It feels often in these times where we feel a collective outrage and just anger, as well as like deep, profound concern for where this can go, where this pressure cooking can go. It feels that coming together in these gatherings is a great outlet for us to move to action. So I just, again, deeply respect your time and what we're all coming and what we're all bringing to this circle. So thank you so much. And in true yin fashion, we're in for a treat. Marley, I'm so excited. Thank you so much for responding to being put on the spot. Are you all right to lead us into a sound?
Yeah,
activity?
absolutely.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And also thank you, Sherry, so much for that deep dropping in, where we can really come into our center and sort of notice right now, where is your sense of awareness? Do you feel like your sense of awareness is maybe on the outside of your body? And let's try to bring our sense of awareness all the way into the center of our body, into the center of our core. And I'm going to have us close our eyes again to tap back into a meditative space. And as you close your eyes and you come back into your center, let's begin with listening. Just starting to listen for the silence between the sounds. And playing with your inner mixer, connect to the sound of your heartbeat. Seeing if you can turn the sound of your heartbeat up, so it's the most present sound that you can hear. Now tuning in to the sounds outside of your body. Notice your ability to connect to any one of them that you desire, to attune the information that you're receiving. And it's through this listening that we become informed. It's through this listening that we're then empowered to speak. And right now, our holistic voices are very needed. And needed with a softness and a compassion, with an anger that's attuned to sacred rage of action and empowerment. So let's just listen a moment longer to the nature sounds all around me. Let's listen to Mama Gaia's voice. And let's connect to how she has continuously showed up for us. Let's connect beyond the words that we've been conditioned to listen for, into the bird songs and into the leaves. And as this Friday is World Environmental Day, let's understand that as suffering persists amongst any sentient being, including the earth, it will exist within us, humanity. And so we're going to start just with a soft vocal warm-up. I'm going to connect you to the home of your voice. Feel free to open your eyes. Thank you for going inwards. Go ahead and take your right hand and place it over your belly button. Over your belly button. And if you can, connect to your sacral chakra. Your sacral chakra is the home of your voice. It's the home of your inner voice, your intuition. It's also the home of your creativity, your ability to create, and your sexuality, sensuality, to be able to create from that which you desire with your inner voice. So as we create these sounds, and as you speak throughout the day, imagine staying in your center body and connect all the way down to your sacral chakra, to that place right behind your belly button. We're just going to create a couple low humming sounds together to really ground into our body, to ground into the present moment. And as you create this low, deep humming sound, allow the vibration from your voice to move through your entire body to release any grief, anger, depression, fear, worry. Okay, so we're going to use our body like a tuning fork. We're going to use the vibration. So let's breathe in together. Exhaling. Let's breathe in one more time. And as we exhale, let's just all hum out low and long together. Let's do it again. And notice that if you have thoughts in the mind, bring that mental energy down to your sacral chakra, breathing in. And on these next couple of hums out, I want you to imagine now that that energy, the vibration being created by your voice, is rippling out from your center, from your heart center, into your environment. And go ahead and infuse with it an intention of forgiveness, love, compassion, grace, peace, harmony, anything that feels right to you in this moment. So let's go ahead and take another breath in. And last one, take a deep breath in, and this time let's bring all that energy back into the center of your body, connecting to your sacral, connecting to your heart center, breathing in. And then I'll share with you one last thing. I'll share a little bit of earth song, because I feel very present with the earth today, and I woke up this morning feeling optimism of an unfolding and a blossoming that's occurring. And as we stop polluting the seas and the airs in this moment of quarantine, the earth is becoming stronger. She's becoming more alive and more present, and those that have been with the earth, working close to the earth, are also becoming empowered. We see this with Indigenous cultures around the world, claiming for history to be recognized. So this is a song of gratitude that's coming from the trees around me. Thank you, Mama Guy, for being present with us today. Thank you for all of you that hold her so dearly in your heart, that have devoted your life force energy and your presence to being in service of this planet, to all the people on it. Thank you.
Voice of an angel. Wow, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Molly. We can't wait to see you when you get here. Well, Sherry very kindly has been reflecting on where we go now and how we split into breakout groups. And so I'd love to hand over to you, Sherry. And time-wise, we're gonna about 10 minutes, Sherry. So we'll split into groups. Do you want to just introduce the question, and we'll split into groups of 2 to 3 and then come back in 10 minutes.
Okay, great. So I'd heard you say 20 minutes in a chat. Are we 10 minutes now?
It's 11:20.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll be shorter. So my invitation for us is been really feeling the need of like going deeper into just kind of opening up our hearts to each other, and as community, like how are we creating community right here, and how are we being, you know, vulnerable with each other. And I really like the term of the community is a structure of belonging. And so let's ask a deeper question for ourselves that will not just say, which group do you want to go into and talk about that, but rather let's open up our, let's open up to reveal a little bit more for each other. So here's the invitation. You're going to be broke into 2 or 3. I'm not sure how that will work, but it'll be perfect. You guys can figure out the math if you're 2 or 3. Lucien, can you decide if it's 2 or 3 or?
It just depends on the.
Okay. Okay.
3. Let's see. I can make it exactly 3 per room. 6 rooms. Okay,
good. That gives like, you know, about 3 minutes each person. So here's the question, and it's just take it in. What are you longing for in your own communities? So that's what are you longing for? And I just want to like say that I really love this idea of that our greatest heart's desire is so important, because coded in that desire is the blueprint of our evolutionary potential. So really allowing that yearning to be like, okay, that's important. So what are you yearning for in your own communities? And part 2, this gets to like the deeper layers. What behavior do you find you could change to create more of that possibility? So a little bit of the radical responsibility and like kind of honesty with yourself of like, what would it take for you to show up for creating that yearning? And then just be open to whatever you feel really called to share in a more intimate way with each other. And you'll have to be mindful, self-facilitate your timing for the 10 minutes, and then you'll get that notification to come back in. Perfect. Are there any questions, any clarifications? Do you guys have that? Do you have a sense of what I've just asked? Good. Okay, good.
Thank you. All right. See you at the after party. This is where Zoom magic happens. The serendipity. Yeah. Hey, how are you?
I missed my breakout room entry. Could you send me back in?
Yeah, I think I'm going to put you in 3, Seth.
Sounds good.
Cool. Auntie Ivy, I just invited you to 2. If you press join on your phone, I think that'll You able to
Say
do
that
that?
again,
Sherry?
sorry.
I just assigned you to breakout room 2. If you just click accept on your phone, you can join there. Do you see the breakout?
No. Let me have a look.
Try that. Are you in a room, Brian? Look at that rude awakening.
Totally.
Wow, that's actually a really nice effect.
Just like snap the fingers and we're back.
You know what I wish that it would do, Lucienne? You should have this as a feature, is that when you come back, that it gives you the faces of each person. You get like a second or two so that you can actually like, oh, I was like, oh, look, there's Marcus. Oh, there's Tatiana. So.
Auntie Ivy said we need to come together, and then the room's closed.
Well, there you go.
Oh, beautiful. How was it? Any popcorn shares? Anyone feel they'd like to share with the whole group?
Intense.
I'll share. I loved being on an international, you know, like Yasmin is from Morocco, or Yasmin is in Morocco and Elijah is in Vancouver. I'm in California. And just feeling this global camaraderie of everyone joining together and really wanting to elevate humanity from a very heart-centered and loving and conscious space. And just also knowing that even with everything going on in the US, that people from all around the world are just really caring about what's happening with the racism and inequality right now. And it just feels, I feel like such a deep sense of connection and global community like I never have before.
Yeah.
The last part of our conversation was really interesting, and we were discussing how to create spaces where each person can thrive and do more of what they are really good at. But at the same time, how do we create accountability process in which, you know, when the hard work needs to be done, there is a rotation process where, like, you know, you need to, or you're somehow forced to jump in. So the toll is balanced between all the members of the community. And we're speaking a bit about, you know, fluid leadership and this concept of like making everybody be part of every role, so you fully understand what implications there are and you can see each other better. It's powerful.
Anyone else?
I'm happy to chime in. No, I actually saw Lucy go to speak. I would love to hear Lucy speak.
Thanks, Seth. In our session, we had a really interesting conversation about the skills required to, I'm going to use the word to become awakened, but really to do the deep dive inner work, and the desire to see that in more of the leadership, especially in places of power and business settings and kind of people holding the reins. And so we were just sort of diving in on what does that look like? How is that kind of change inspired? I was saying that I'm very committed to that path myself, and I try to speak a lot from my own personal narrative, and that seems to really resonate for people. But yeah, it's sort of this question of how do we get more and more people on the path of doing that work so that the solutions can be made available in more and more broad settings.
Beautiful. Seth, do you want to? Thank you, Lucy.
Yep. So what was most active for us in our conversation, I think, is it's really getting down to the root of what I'm feeling and sensing inside a lot of just chats and communities and things that I'm observing right now, which is this just the idea of othering. Like I continue to see the phrase conscious community, like we're a conscious community, or what do conscious communities need to do right now? And I keep feeling that this language around being something or not being something is intrinsically othering. It has to do with the racial conversation that we're in right now, has to do with capitalism and whether it's extractive or not extractive. It has to do with feminine and masculine dynamics, if we want to look at that. And intrinsically, our being tenses up when we feel like I think back to like Planet Home. And one of the hardest things about creating Planet Home was not being able to understand and control all of the flows of people moving through that environment. And what I knew is that the moment that you put a security guard at a gate and have them essentially blocking entry for other people into like whatever VIP or section that certain people can come into and certain people can't, we are not, like, the worst feeling in the world to us as human beings is to have a hand go out and say, this isn't the conversation that's for you. It's intrinsically othering. It was one of the hardest things to watch, and one of the things that I wanted to resolve fastest moving forward with that ecosystem. But it also happens inside of things like Me Too movements, and that's why you get a backlash inside of a movement like that. It's why we'll get a backlash in the racial conversation that's happening right now, because we're intrinsically othering, and othering only occurs when we have a sense of duality that intrinsically is going to cause us to be judgmental about whether something is or is not. And Ram Dass refers to judgment as being the antithesis of love, and that's why you get a backlash inside of a movement like that. It's why we'll get a backlash in the racial conversation that's happening right now, because we're intrinsically othering. I'm not sure what's happening. Can everybody mute? That's really crazy.
Amandine, can you mute?
All right. So just in general, I think that the really important thing to listen to right now is how we're using language that intrinsically others communities. And I'm really committed to like just us seeing that we're not fucking special. Like, we're just not, and we're not further or less along than anybody else. It's just, we just are, and we're being, and the being that we need to work towards is a being in that state of equanimity that allows things to pass through us like water, where we're not in a state of judgment, which allows us to just keep loving through this entire process. And if we can't be there, last thing that we should be doing is leading in anything or decision making on anything.
Hey, Seth, let me piggyback on what you just said. I think it's spot on. And I think, you know, what the deeper root is orientation. As people, we have kind of had a loss of orientation around the severance of us to the planet. You know, we are built from the same, you know, molecules that have created stardust that is 15 million light years away and beyond. And we have lost and created this bulwark of separation between us and the planet, which is actually the symptoms of all these isms that are being created right now. And, you know, they have run studies that ultimately says that when you're away from your mother after you're born, the mortality rate goes up exponentially if you don't have that tactile touch. And I think that it allows us to create this barrier between not only us and the earth, but us and other people. And that's where the othering and the fractal, actually, the mechanisms in the system actually come about. And through those fractals, you get divisiveness, you know, you get this cancel culture, and you get the opportunity to name something that's different than you. And once you actually name something that's different than you, then you've created terminology and language around that. And language actually, you know, solidifies behavior. So, you know, ultimately getting back to this greater common goal of this, you know, we are all coming from the same place. We are all bred from the same place. And through that common unity, ultimately, you know, we can start approaching some more of the symptoms of the system.
Can I
I'd love
come
to
in?
chime in too. After you, Ivy.
Okay, sorry. Hey Seth, lovely to see you in person. Absolutely right. My campaign that I was supposed to be bringing through this year is called One Language, you know, one people, and definitely the solutions and that need to be action is on a whole nother vibration, and is why I'm coming across soon to upgrade the teachings that I did for the last 3 years on my walk to bring a whole nother code system. And for example, what's just happened now in the States, you know, the teachings are, for example, the words, you know, white, black, and people are talking about a spiritual war. And these are words that I really strongly teach to for us to not take into the present for the future, because these three words, are energies that belong in the past, that don't serve us, and it's another language of unity and peace, truth, and love. And even though these words have been used all over the place, there is a whole new teaching to reconnect people with the different frequencies that Mother Earth and that have now. And this is why I'm excited and committed, and I'm trying to urgently get across to bring this whole alignment of connection in a whole different vibration that has been hacked from the mining to all the frequency of technology. It's just a little minor tune, but I really want to share this with the world, especially the people like ourselves that are out in the front, because this is what's going to bring an equal vibration across the board, and is needed to not go backwards into behaviours that don't serve us. So it's a beautiful time to be here to bridge with everyone that wants to be responsible to take it forward. So there is a new teaching and new code system, and our United Nations Indigenous Forum Council, we're talking about this, and I'm really the push in it to bridge to all cultures, we're all Indigenous, and hopefully I get to meet some of you when I come across, so I can share those with people to take out to their communities.
Thank you, Ivy. I want to just share one thing really briefly that was alive about behavior, and it was, where are we not speaking up? Where are we not saying what we need to say, wherever that might be, and where have we made ourselves silent for whatever reason? So such an invitation to be more in our truth and our integrity and show up in that way. So I wanted to name that.
Yeah, and maybe building on what you both said, I mean, there's evidence that it conditions our mind and our behavior about what we name, what we don't name, what we recognize. If you recognize something and name it, or if you recognize things we don't name it, do we consciously recognize it even or not? And then I don't know, but I think all of us probably sometimes run into situations where we want to say something, but like just the language right now and the words right now don't express it at all, and just wrong. And maybe building what Ivy said on the wrong vibration, and being more mindful about that. And then, yeah, what Sherry said about the things that we don't think they deserve a name, but maybe they do.
Thank you so much for these shares. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to share?
I think our language has to be reworked, and linearity of our language is no longer sufficient for the dimension that we're experiencing. And it's a co-creation process. There's nothing to do. Agreement is important in language creation. Coming back to ancient cultures, ancient intelligence is important. Connecting with races that are not humanity is also very important to acknowledge in spaces like this.
Thank you for bringing that in, Natalia.
Thank you.
Yeah, something I'd love to share is I love to talk about the Planetary Hat Trick, which is a kind of fun concept. It's 3 ideas that when delivered together over the golden decade, it can essentially do a pivot in civilization. And at least is the hypothesis. The 3 ideas is, number 1, a new planetary language. So truly, this hasn't really been attempted since Esperanto in the 20s, which was based on European languages. and it wasn't really universal, but it was a good crack at it. But now we have all this technology we can use to develop new forms of communication, even potentially telepathy. We don't even know yet what our capacity is. And so I'm convinced that our descendants will look at the way we communicate as archaic right now. So the question for us is, as a new planetary language, how do we use all the senses? How do we not just speak our words, but feel them and communicate those feelings? And could that language be a way to kind of rewire our minds? If language is our original operating system and what we need to do is a planetary upgrade to the operating system, language might be one of those things hiding in plain sight. Because every great civilization, their language was the kind of, the crescendo of the demonstration of their culture. The second one is, of course, surprise, surprise, it's a new world game, and what Bucky talked about, and that's really what the Up game is attempting to prototype. But how do we turn the enormous mountain-sized challenge that's ahead of us, with all of the intersecting challenges from racial justice to gender, to climate change, to across take the SDGs, for example. But how do we turn it into a game and make it fun and playful and welcome the inner child to the front and center? And then finally is the greatest party of all time, to keep going to it, because the greatest party of all time, the party to end history and begin her story, which is our story, is how we love to say it. But that's those three things delivered together, I feel could really change things. So, Nico.
Listen, I think you tap into one of my favorite subjects of all time. And I just want to bring attention to that and amplify it. Language as the absolute definer of our reality. Like the words that we have, or the words is what we understand is defined by the words that we have. And Terence McKenna always used this example of tribes in the Amazon, which don't have words for the future or the past. So they live in the present. They just don't have the language to express it, so they cannot understand it. And I've been working around these ideas for a long time, and there has been some of the people just trying to create new words to define feelings. Like we're very limited by how can we express how we feel if we only have feelings like sad or angry or happy. So one of the things that I've been doing is trying to start this idea of creating a new dictionary, where we can create words to define the world that we're imagining, and the feelings that we're feeling in the old world, from all these things that are happening, and the things that we want to feel in the future. And I think that's a simple thing that we can start doing. We don't need to create a whole new language, but creating a dictionary with words that define the things that we're imagining would be really, really powerful, and it's very shareable.
Totally. Yeah. Well, let's Nico, if you could bring that into the community commons breakout group. So we're gonna try something new here. We've had our in honoring Blackout Tuesday, we kind of reduced the amount of time that we have normally with this process. Bear in mind, you're game 3, so we haven't had like a whole lot of cycles of this. But what we typically do was feel the energy towards each of these 8 upgrades that we've highlighted, and each of the 8 pillars, if you like, of the upgrade. And the intention here is that we can start to gather our collective intelligence in particular, like pointed ways, and like highlight solutions, particularly fundable solutions for the planetary commons. And so normally what we do is we do some more rounds and we like see where the energy is in each group. We only have an hour left. So can you, does everyone trust me to like do Lucian's equivalent of what Zoom just did, of like assign you some groups based on what I know about you and where I think you're gonna thrive, because there's just not enough time. So I'm gonna start assigning some groups. Surprise, surprise, in Community Commons, Nico, if you could lead in that space, and then I'm gonna put David Solomon in there as well. I think you've got a lot to talk about together. I'm going to try and join you. Let me see, how do I assign? Ooh, I should have done this earlier. Okay. One sec. Does anyone, just while I'm assigning, anyone else want to share? And I'll you can open the groups as soon as we're done in this area.
Elijah, please go ahead.
I just want to bring significance to the fact that there's 20 of us here. And I don't know if anyone follows the Mayan calendar, but there's 20 galactic signatures that I've always thought that when they come together, they activate your superhero sort of gifts. And then if you take a look at this is like a tetrahedron within a tetrahedron within a tetrahedron.
Yeah.
And basically, it's like when you get a tetrahedron, and then that's 4, and then you kind of at each edge you get 4 again. It creates 16, and then it creates 20. So it's the first time the tetrahedron comes back to a full form as a whole system. So having 20 people here is, and I've had again this intuition that when 20 people come together, that's when everything's going to sort of take off. So just to bring some attention to the fact that we are fitting on sort of universal forms as human beings.
I love that, Elijah. Thank you. I have a thought just around that language piece that I would like to share. And for me, it's less about a particular language or certain words, but feeling safe to be able to communicate. I feel like so much of the reasons why things are there the way they are today is people have walls up and traumas and don't feel safe to speak their truth. So to me, it starts there. Like, I'll figure out how to translate your words. I want you to be able to speak them. And for me, that's just like the most critical part of all of this. I spoke to a little bit. I was in and out of one of the first breakout groups. I was having some technical issues, but for me, it starts with your circle, like who you're with, who's in your world, who are you in human-to-human contact with, being able to hold space, see them in their wholeness, listen to them, really listen to them, be with them, and then be able to share in your own vulnerability. And in that practice, being able to then take that to the outer circle and the outer circle and the outer circle to the broader community. The more that we can show up for each other in that kind of way is where the real healing is.
As well as the inner work of navigating our inner worlds to even discover what our truth is. Like, what is it that we really believe in, and what is the courage to hold that vulnerability or to speak it. So I see it, I often think of it as like an infinity ellipse, and the deeper we go within our own internal journey, the broader we can go in the exterior plane as well. So I felt for many years in my life that I was kind of muted and kind of numb, and even if there had been a space for me to speak into, I didn't even know what I needed to or wanted to say or what was true for me. And so that's been a real process of cultivating that inner wisdom and then finding the courage also to speak it and for voices to hear me, or, you know, for other people to be able to witness and hear me.
Aho, Lucy, thank you for that. So I would like to carry that thought into, as we go into these breakout rooms, be vulnerable, speak your truth, say what it is that you really feel. And from there, that's where the magic is. And if we've got 20 and all this awesome geometry is around us, then like, let's cut loose.
Let's cut loose. And I just want to introduce a very dear friend who has been part of Unified Planet from before it was conceived, and actually helped go from United Planet to Unified Planet. Amandine, I'd love you to quickly introduce yourself, and then we'll go into breakout rooms. You trust me, everyone. This is like this is the algorithm. Amandine.
Yeah, thank you, Lucien. I couldn't resist to join this amazing group of shining soul, and I felt the call to plug today. And when I plugged myself, my eyes were looking outside, and there was this golden light coming, and I said, I have to figure out, because I never saw that in my life before, where I am in south of France right now. And I went outside, and there was this double rainbow above a magic hill. And I felt like, okay, there is something very important going on right now on your call. And so I'm happy to see some beautiful face, Lucy and Sherry and Elijah and Lisa and Julian and Maya. And I mean, this is all the family. I miss you so much, but thanks to the Zoom and thanks to social media, we are all interconnected, and I can really feel the vibes, and so grateful to be with all of you today. And yes, we were all, a lot of us, we were at Planet Home, and this is where Lucian births Unified Planet, and it was, we were already in the new Earth. We were already on the fifth dimension of what we are all to create, and we are all here to all the frequency of the fifth dimension that we are bringing on Earth. And I can feel it. The confirmation is just outside the double rainbow. It's incredible.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Amandine won the Nobel Peace Prize in 2030.
Yeah.
And Yasmin landed on the moon in 2030. She was the first, yeah. All right, so here's the test of Lucian's algorithm. So I've assigned everybody a group based on what I know you have an interest in and think that you can have a voice in, just to be efficient. And what the challenge over the next, let's come back and say 40 minutes. The question is what we want to do by the end of today is synthesize. It's really short, just a paragraph, couple of paragraphs for each one. We'll give a demonstration in the chat of what this looks like. But for each one of these pillars, what we're after is at least one or two community solutions that you know that could be scaled, that you want to help shine a spotlight on, that could be recipients of funding. Because what we're doing is we're stacking every 2 weeks 8 new community sourced scalable solutions for the Planetary Commons. And so in particular, think about that question of these solutions that could be scaled in the commons. You know, things like a new planetary language could be an effort of the Planetary Commons. So they can be as big and audacious as like, hey, we want to create a new planetary language or create the greatest party of all time. Or they could be extremely deliverable, like every single community should have a nutrition hub is one thing that the food game is doing, and creating living walls and things like that that don't cost a lot of money but are very, very impactful. So I'm going to open up these rooms and we'll come back and have a great time. And I wish we had time for like musical chairs, but unfortunately we've got to roll with it.
How do we know?
I'm with Krista, right?
Nicole, you're in leadership. Yep, I'm assigning you to that one. Perfect. There we go. If you guys want to get on, I assigned you guys to rooms as well. That was some fast assigning. I was like,
let's mute.
We're not Oh, here we are. Cool. Yeah, feel free, Nico, to put something in the chat there.
Ah, well, the first one's back. Woohoo! See, I consider the commons, I'm looking at the actual galaxy behind them.
Hello, everyone.
Winner of the Nobel Peace Prize.
Welcome back. How was it?
Great.
Good.
Good. Great. I think I lost 2 of my. Here, where's okay?
They got
I lost
they're
my group.
stuck in the metaverse. The
I
omniverse.
lost them. Yeah, in the universe. Totally.
Yeah, welcome back. Thank you all for that parallel processing going on. We've got what was it when Intel created that chip that's got the 8? You know, do you know what like the 8 group? 8's a good number, we think, for like stacking each 2 weeks. And what we've been doing is getting the 12 to 20 people to align themselves with one or more of these 8 pillars, and it's kind of been helpful. So hopefully that was useful and you appreciated. How was my algorithm?
Perfect. Great. So good.
Not ready to get automated yet. So what we'd love to do now is if each person, certainly at least one person from each group, would be super helpful if you could put in the chat the title of your group, the title of your breakout group, the pillar, e.g. Community Commons, the title of any like solution that you'd like us to like look at and spotlight, and any paragraph explaining that. That would be, if you can make it in the next 13 minutes in the chat, would be awesome, so everybody can see. And then we're gonna organize it into this like 8-page summary with memes and fun stuff as like a synthesis of everything we discussed. And if you want to bonus points, if you want to come up with a meme that you think would be fun for what you discussed, every upload we do has a meme associated with it. So it's actually my favorite thing to do, is come up with memes. But very much welcome you guys if there's a meme that we just I think Brian we had from copyright. You put from copyright to copy left. I think that was Nico. I put from copyright to copy all, to go beyond left right statements. But yeah, if anyone wants to speak what you discussed, let's do that. And if we can invite some rapid hiving of collective intelligence in the chat. Anyone like to share from your groups?
Well, I can just jump in. I just wrote it into the chat already. It was part of the community narrative, very, very vital conversations. And I hear an echo, whoever, maybe you can mute yourself. And so there's a lot that was kind of addressed early already in this group intelligence here that we build on. And so for us, it was really to understand that, one, like giving people a unified planet narrative might be the wrong way to go, because like that's always going to be challenged by polarity thinking of like, who are these people to tell me what to think or what the narrative is? And so that narrative might want to be based on the process of inquiry and deliberately played around asking questions and deliberately passing on a narrative that allows more people to ask more questions, so that we're actually inviting into not a solidly formed narrative, but into like something that's like a morphogenetic field in itself that creates more as it's being experienced and built. And the second piece we had was on belonging, because that was the one thing we all kind of could understand, that we're, everyone wants a deep feeling of belonging, and that's where a lot of the identities and then the polarities around identities start happening. And so the only belonging that is truly both biologically as well as like intellectually like clear and sound is the belonging as a planetary citizen, or like a planetary connection. I could go on and on, but I think this is where I'm gonna just pass it on.
I'm really inspired by our group because we were talking about documenting and creating the documentary of truth of the journey home, unity. And I see it as a long journey, years and years of documentary and materials, and supporting people like Auntie Ivy and the Indigenous voices preservation, and creating all these holographic experiences really from the future by inspiring to connect to our homes, back to the truth, the deepest truth, and sharing those voices to the loudest scale possible in a gentle way. And technology platform for that.
I guess from the...
I took notes of that. That's a great thing to highlight. And if it's around an existing project, something that's already in plan, that's like even more bonus, right? We don't necessarily want to come here to start new things. That's good if they're needed, but what we really want to do is showcase the work that you're already doing in the world. So please do feel free. This is not a place where you don't talk about your companies or your life mission. It's like super welcome. Elijah.
Okay, so Tatiana and I and Seth were in the community technology pillar. And what came out of that is a community communication room. If you look at a lot of these sort of war movies, they have this big center where they're organizing everything to conduct their war. We need the same thing for peace and love, where we actually have a communication room in every community that's non-government, that's non-corporate, that is organizing and integrating and connecting all of the community initiatives in one place and showing how best to connect them together. And so the operating system, which I've been sort of working on for all this time, the inflow matrix would be the operating system for it. And with it are a whole bunch of tools that if you look at this kind of,
wow.
It's a new timing device. That would be the center point, and then it's 9 levels up, and you can sort of, imagine it's a big computer interface. You can just touch this and move everything around. And so, using the technology of the day to truly begin to connect all of the pieces of the puzzle and focusing mainly on the gifts of the people that are working. And then you can come together on different teams to carry out whatever you guys are going to be coming up with. This would be a reference point for actually connecting them all together, and then putting one in each city in the world, and then connecting those all together so that we're building this new paradigm of how we transform the world.
Beautiful, Elijah. Wow. Thank you. Thank you. And we're actually connecting some dots. Elijah and I, and Maya, Ram, some others you may know, are part of a parallel game that we're playing on the Unified Charter. And so the narrative, Julian is going to join us tonight for the dinner from the narrative, potentially Yasmin as well, where we're going to be having a checkpoint to discuss what the invitation is for June 20th on solstice. I want to just, Nicole asked a great question to me on chat here, which is to clarify around the planetary commons and IP and organizations. So the way we see this is companies can serve the planetary commons as almost as a customer base. You can think of the commons as something that could purchase from particular companies or access certain companies. So it's not to say that the commons won't have companies serving it. It's to design how can we scale solutions for the commons? And that includes companies, includes foundations, it includes DAOs. There's going to be a whole lot of hybrid organizations coming together to serve the commons. And what I said in the commons breakout group is that, I believe, and many share that belief, that the planetary commons should be bigger than any nation. It should be bigger than any corporation. And it can become a new way to be the checks and balances of this post nation state world. And so that's partly what we're thinking. Our goal is to get to 1 billion members in the planetary benefiting from the planetary commons by 2030, which I think is a very reasonable goal, and perhaps should be bigger. But that's the kind of thing we're thinking about. So it's not like a particular company that you're. It's not that you need to put your IP into the commons, if you see what I mean. It's more that like you'd be developing a solution for the commons. And just to illustrate a quick example that came yesterday that's super exciting, Unified Planet got its first scoop in that my dear brother Khan, who's been part of the food game, he's raised over $100 million for his company Terramera, which is transforming agricultural technology. His goal is the company's mission is to feed 1 billion people by 2030, and I would put money on that happening. But their new product, a third product in their line, is all around soil carbon. And they've developed a technology that doubles the amount of carbon in the soil, which literally doubles the yield of the crops and takes like a shit ton of carbon out of the atmosphere. So it's like a massive scalable solution. And so what we did was profile this as a solution for the planetary commons, i.e. like a planetary effort to bring more carbon into the soil through this company. And so that's the kind of thing that, you know, that might be a $1 billion price tag or a $10 billion price tag that Terramera could lead on. So just to illustrate that, but back to you guys. Anyone? There's good chats going if anyone wants to see those, but anyone else want to share from your breakouts? Thank you, Nico. I'd love to hear from the leadership, Krista, or would love to hear how that went.
Okay, I can share if you want.
Please, thank you, David.
Yeah, sure. So the one that we were given to do is really on the community commons. It's quite a bit in line with some of the work that we do with Indigenous people globally. Now, so you're talking about that this body needs to be bigger than any nation state. Just to quantify this in terms of their size, they're 25% of the world's land, 30% of its natural resources, 80% of its biodiversity. So the request essentially was you're looking for a lever that can both generate income according to new value systems, whilst at the same time be something that's massively scalable. So unlocking the wealth of the commons, bear with me, towards the building of new models of civilization is very much a timing issue. And you have to leverage what's going to be the strongest agenda globally in the coming few years, whether you agree or disagree with it as an agenda. One that can generate the most amount of income to be reinvested in these new value systems. And so, as I said, why choose Indigenous people? Because they have the strongest aspect towards gaining sovereignty. They safeguard 80% of the biodiversity, which is the lungs of the earth. But the key is it's the supply side of carbon neutrality. Why is that so important? The demand side is estimated to be 5.5 trillion a year for the next 15 years. Here's the issue. As you said, can't be tackled by competitive advantage, only cooperative advantage. Lucian, you said this. Why? It's so big a market that any model of scarcity is just simply not going to tackle it. So a tech roll-up strategy that involves up to 1 billion users within 2030 is very key. The other issue is that the current carbon market does not currently represent the voice of the people who are 80% of the equation. They don't have their own product within that market. And so just here is, if you're going to lay hold of that, you have to have a strategy that enables individuals, consumers, brands to rally behind a product which is in line with the value system, because the value systems we choose determine the future societies we create. So it's the underpinning of those value systems. And I'm not a big climate guy, by the way, but it's very clear that that's going to be a key income driver on a massive global agenda as we come out of post-COVID.
Dude, if you're not a big climate guy, I don't know who is.
I'm not. I'm more, for me, it's about spirit and enlightenment that, you know, yeah.
You do your bit on the climate, my friend. Thank you so much, David. Lucy, I know we're just we'll wrap up the food. The Food Technology Guild is running a few minutes behind, so if anyone's got the time, we can wrap up, and maybe if anyone, certainly Marley, if you would like to, or Auntie Ivy, if you'd be happy to lead us on a close, that would be wonderful. But Lucy, do you want to? I think you had your hand up, right?
No, I was just actually putting things into the chat. I was working with Marcus. Happy to speak about it, but don't need to based on time. But we had both community councils and bright spots. And so we sort of, and Lisa was in our group as well, but had to leave. And we were thinking about, you know, who are the groups that would make sense to put into councils. And we thought specifically women, youth, and Indigenous communities. And we thought about a global structure integrating or having councils both in urban and rural areas, and that the councils would focus on wisdom-based practices to be something that is distinguishing from all of the existing governing bodies right now. It's something that we practiced in this call and that I'm practicing on my women's council as well, which is the wisdom practices that put us into our innate highest state so that we're better able to make sense of the world and listen to each other and all of those beautiful attributes, but also that those councils would be focused on highlighting bright spots within their community. So they would be responsible for sourcing ideas that then would come up, and it could become sort of an accelerator for positive ideas and change to be channeled up. And the idea is that these councils would all sort of feed into one another, and there'd be nodes that would exchange information and ideas and resources between them.
Beautiful, Lucy. Yeah.
So it's a big set of ideas that need a lot more work.
The algorithm worked. Thank you so much, Lucy. Amandine, would you like to? I think that would be all the groups covered if you share what you and Brian discussed.
Yeah, with Brian, and Sherry has to leave, but this is what we came as a meme. So we were working on interoperability, and we were smiling because I say this is exactly the symbol of a rainbow. Means you are in pink, and Joshua is in blue, and Brian is in white. But all together, when we unify, we make a rainbow, and which is a bridge. So the meme is never above you, never below you, always beside you. And so we came with the conclusion that community are only as strong as their connection, and community interoperability stands upon shared values, principle, and agreement. So we are all part of a unifying planet, and all life is part of as a team. And we acknowledge our shared humanity and connection with the earth. We open new possibility, new potentiality for our connection to be synergistic and emergent. So we become stronger, wiser, happier together. That's it. So no one is above you, nor below you. We are always beside each other.
Words.
Beautiful.
Right. There we go. Yeah.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you so much.
I can share our, sorry, I was having difficulty unmuting myself, but if you'd like, yes.
Yeah, Adam, you're getting Adam. Welcome to the Community Impacts family. Adam's dropping in from food.
Welcome, Adam.
Thank you. Thought I'd just eavesdrop a little bit. It's exciting.
Go ahead, Krista.
We talked about leadership, and it was a great conversation, near and dear to my heart, of course. We talked about just very much in line with what Amandine just said. So really looking at principle-based leadership, and as we look as ourselves leaders within our organizations, and you know, creating something new, having this baseline of principle-based leadership and sort of a structure to that. And so we'll be sharing some ideas that we have around that. I won't go into great detail, but it's really, it threads into everything that that you've just said, but a great follow-up to Amandine.
That's amazing, Krista. That's, yeah. Here's one we made earlier. That's perfect. So we'd love to showcase that, Krista, and we're going to see what we've got. I haven't been able to read everything here, but we'll see what we've got, and we'll be bringing it together into something beautiful for us all. And then what happens, this is the end of seed stage. Congratulations. You are now all founding players of community, which means if you get to the harvest stage, you can then go create your own games. And it replicates that way. Once we get to harvest, we get to plant those seeds again, and the games go on, the never-ending infinite game. So thank you, and we're going to do a retrospective next week. I'm going up to Shasta for the weekend for full moon on Mount Shasta. I'm going to go, and some of you know Boz, one of our dear brothers who died in a car crash a few weeks ago on Shasta. So I'm going to go and put my tent where he transitioned, and sleep on Mount Shasta for a few days. So we'll do the retrospective maybe in like midweek next week. I'll follow up by email, and then we'll meet again the week of the week of the 19th. We have a week off, and then anyone that wants to meet comes back then, and you can nominate people as well if you'd like to join. But what happens is we'll create the Unified Planet Community Alliance, and so you're all invited to be founding members. We have a maximum number of 8 people on that alliance at Sprout stage, and then anyone that would like to be what's called a Sherpa of a guild can create a guild. So we could create for example create the Community Technology Guild, and anyone that's holding technologies can come together and build projects that ultimately could have funds channeled to them. So that's how it works. I'll explain it all on email, and it's all an experiment anyway. We're just kind of experimenting our way into seeing what works, but it's moving fast. So do you want to, Marley, would you mind closing us with a synchronized moment again? Because you are an angel.
Thank you, as we all are. So thank you, all the Earth Angels on this call. All right, let's go ahead and just take a deep breath in. And as we take a deep breath in, let's bring in all of this information, all of this vision, all of this hope, all of this care, all of this rage, all of the injustice. Bring it into our body. Let's take this moment to integrate all of the information that we've witnessed, shared, come upon to in this call today. Integrate it, distill it, and trust that we will be embodying this information, whether or not it's active in our mind. Finding gratitude for the time that we've given ourselves to be here together, finding gratitude for one another, the shared experience, and finding gratitude for the ripple effects that will be occurring, future and past, because our devotion in this moment right here, right now. We're going to go ahead and let's do a tone home just like yesterday. Let's share a low, long, deep note in, really pulling all of your energy now back into your center, reclaiming all of your energy from all of your prior conversations and all of those in the future into right here, right now. Breathing in, releasing with a low note. Let's do 2 more together. And may we go into the rest of the day and into the rest of this weekend just with love, peace, and gratitude. Thank you so much for this call, everybody. Thank you so much, Lucian.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Say hi to Karn for us. We love Karn. He's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, he is. He is. He's
Great.
part of the food game.
Oh, that's awesome. As it should be.
As it should
Thank
be.
you so much. This was wonderful. Really appreciate
Thank you
it.
so much, Chris. We'll be in touch on just if you can synthesize what that structure is, so we can kind of shine a light on that, and in particular on leaders on purpose as the solution. Like that's kind of the point here. So we want to showcase that.
Awesome.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Bye and have fun in the next one.
Thank you, Lucian. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
You're either side of a, like, it's like having two incredible, like the Tatiana and Krista's work with Leaders on Purpose is so on point, like so on point right now. And we've been discussing doing a partnership with the Up Game where we could bring together, you know, CEO leaders to discuss the next 10-year, like the golden decade goals. And it's just, yeah, so exciting. It's just love what we're doing.
Thank you so much. We love it too.
Thank you. Yeah.
Bye.
Have a good day. Bye.
Bye. Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Ah, Natalia, if you want to stay and listen into food technology, you're most welcome. Hey, Tim.
Hey there.
Good to see you here, brother.
Good to see you.
Yeah, Natalia, you're welcome to stay if you want. I think Paola is going to be joining from Colombia and Mackenzie from Colorado.
Thanks, guys. I'll stay. I'll stay.
Sure, you
Thank
stay and
you.
listen in. We're already kind of quite far down the track, but stay and listen in, you can, yeah.
I will be monitoring and recording things, so I'll just do my thing. I'll be quiet. Thank you.
I'm gonna stop the one video actually. That reminds me.